In 2017, Nintendo released The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and everyone loved it. Many critics rated high scores, and it was praised for its open world, innovative mechanics, and the sense of freedom it offered. And the game received Metascore 97 out of 100 and a must play tag from Metacritic. The game was nominated for many categories and received multiple awards from prestigious awards including Game of the Year, Best Design, Game Innovations, and many more. Breath of the Wild is one of the best games I have ever played. I even bought a Nintendo Switch to play this game. This magnificent game has continued with a sequel, Tears of the Kingdom. I was so excited to play and enjoyed the open world again. Don't get me wrong, Tears of the Kingdom is a great game and I enjoyed it a lot. But somewhere along the way, I found myself feeling a bit bored. So what happened? In this video, I'll dive into the game design decisions of both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, breaking down what each game does right, what it does wrong, and why, despite its strengths, Tears of the Kingdom sometimes falls flat for me. I am not a Nintendo player. Even after this game came out and it rocked the world, then I decided to play this game and get myself a new Nintendo Switch. After start playing the game, I was mesmerized and enjoyed every second of it. Firstly, I want to mention the progression of the game. As a new player in this world, I enjoyed every second of exploring and learning new things about the game world. Also, Link was an amnesiac at the beginning, so Link and I were learning everything about the game world together, which connected me with Link and the game world. And as I explored, I didn't want to leave the game world. I wanted to explore and learn more about the game world. Another thing that I really love about this game is the puzzles and dungeons in the game world. Some were challenging and some were so easy, but each dungeon and each puzzle were designed carefully. After you finish dungeons, you feel happy because you beat the challenge and earned everything you deserved. But what about the differences and similarities between the two games? Apart from open world settings and game world, Nintendo wanted to keep the important parts in the first game but use them differently in the second game, like elemental mechanics. Breath of the Wild uses elemental arrows where you can buy them from the shops around the game world. Tears of the Kingdom uses items that give elemental powers. The fuse power gives arrows and weapons elemental powers. You can fuse the items you find around the level, like fruits or items dropped from the elemental enemies. And I think in the Tears of the Kingdom, this is an upgrade, which makes the fighting fun because you may find that you are out of elemental arrows during the fight, or you need to go to every town in the world to collect elemental arrows. But in Tears of the Kingdom, you can fuse arrows and weapons, which increases the power of the weapons and bows. In the game industry, every game benefits from each other and influenced by their design decisions. I believe Zelda is influenced by Assassin's Creed 2 with the memory points, which I believe it is a great way to tell the story. When you hang around at Assassin's Creed 2, you can hear some strange voice leading to a memory points called glyphs. After you find these points, you can go to the Eagle Vision, which triggers an event when you see these glyphs, which leads to a storyline hidden inside the Animus. In Breath of the Wild, the memory point system works similarly to this glyph mechanics. We have images of these memory points but don't know where they are, so we are trying to find them. Then, when we activate these points, we see the story that Link has forgotten. In Tears of the Kingdom, we try to find the tears and generally see them on hieroglyph-like decals around the level. When we activate these tiers, we see a cinematic aspect of the game's storyline. Also, there are Link's companions or champions, and we are saving and using their powers. In both games, both champions or sages exist. In Breath of the Wild, there are 4 different champions, and Tears of the Kingdom, 5 different sages. In Breath of the Wild, some of these powers are passive, but all are activated whenever their loading time is finished. In Tears of Kingdom, these powers are active, and the images of these champions follows us, and we can activate them whenever we need them. It can be seen that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom uses similar mechanics with similar or advanced usage. And there are more similar mechanics I don't mention about. But if you ask me, the game doesn't change the core of these mechanics. The game just uses the same mechanics with a small twist. If you ask me what the best thing that Tears of the Kingdom does is sandbox mechanics. The game gives players the Zonai devices. They can be bought with the dispenses on the Sky Islands with the Zonai charges. You can find a lot of different devices that help you to fly, create vehicles, or even create mechas. It is the best thing because Nintendo Switch doesn't have the biggest resources like a computer. It has limited resources, and this game uses them as optimized as possible. You can create big mechas and make explosions over explosions. The game console will be able to run everything. Additionally, this game includes this massive world, islands in the sky, the map we know, and the underworld map. While changing from world to world, you may feel the small twitch on the screen as a loading time, but it is nothing when we compare it with other games.
Living below the poverty line than anywhere else.
The game is designed and optimized so well that the console can handle this massive game world and all the sandbox tools you can create. Another thing is the gloom mechanic. The gloom on the floor of the level gives us the challenge and makes the player feel that this place is not safe and uncanny. And if we make a mistake like walking in the gloom for too long, we may pay this mistake harshly. I think the gloom mechanics might be inspired by Death Stranding's swampy mechanics. To be honest, I don't know what it is called. Also, the gloom hands always reminds me the hands of the BTs that pulling Sam down in Death Stranding. And at last, the final boss. If I compare the Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild's final bosses, Tears of the Kingdom has a better final boss. They have tried to create a challenging boss with different phases and attacking styles. I died multiple times fighting with Demon King until I got used to his fighting style. But on Breath of the Wild, I beat Calamity Ganon on my first try. I found it too easy because in Breath of the Wild, the game prepared me against the final boss like it was hard to beat, but it wasn't in my case. In Tears of the Kingdom, they even tried to show players that Demon King is the worst thing that has happened in the game world. The final boss fight proved me that this is correct, and this Demon King is not easy to beat. The main reason I think that Tears of the Kingdom getting boring is that we have to explore the same game world repeatedly, trying to beat the sometimes new, sometimes similar or the same quest, try to beat similar enemies, try to rescue the same companions or sages. Since in story base, Tears of the Kingdom is a sequel of Breath of the Wild, and it made me ask the questions that why are we exploring the same game world again? As we can explore the explanations like Link was unconscious and the world has changed during this time, but as a player, it doesn't change the fact that I'm exploring the same game world. So it was boring and frustrating exploring and doing the same thing again. Another thing that frustrated me is that Sages doesn't help us in the end. So in the story, they were assigned to help us while we were fighting against the Demon King, but they only helped us during the second phase and they didn't even fight with the final boss. They fought with the images of the final boss, and from a design perspective, I questioned why we had the companions in the first place and why do we save them. If the game told us the companions would be there to help us to enter the final boss room, I would say, okay, I wasn't expecting more than this, but the game always tells us that the sages will help us to beat the Demon King. We fight against the Demon King all by ourselves and we beat the Demon King without any companion help. And additional to the all, I feel like in the story and narrative perspective there are some gaps that left empty. For instance, we had champions where we used their powers, but apparently they are gone now without picking a new champions to help us to defend the country or the kingdom. So now we have to save the sages so we can have their powers. And also in the background story about the game world where the ancient technology and underground world where exist, but nobody had any knowledge about this until now. So there is even more narrative perspective that I felt left empty, which I believe it is needed some background stories to fill them up. So to wrap all my comments, I believe that Tears of the Kingdom is one of the greatest games with mechanical and new addition to the game, but it becomes boring with the details that feels like they didn't care at all. We are discovering the same world again, saving the same sages again, trying to find Zelda again, and some design decisions made me question if they are the best decisions. My suggestion is if you want to play a game with some mechanics that are better than Breath of the Wild and in the Zelda world, you should play the Tears of the Kingdom. If I were the designer of this game, I would choose to design a completely different way to explore the game world, because they just share the same game world and exploring the same game world with the same way makes it boring. So it feels like since the Breath of the Wild was a success, they wanted to do the second game and they wanted to go with the same settings. But this doesn't change the fact that this game is one of the greatest games and I think any player in the world should play it. But when you forget, or if you haven't or are not planning to play the Breath of the Wild, in my opinion, the repetition and some design decisions make this game boring for me. Thanks for watching this first video of my channel, and please subscribe and ring the bell to stay in the loop. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and hope to see you in the next video.